Bringing this now, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi says the water crisis, which is currently plaguing several communities across the province, will soon be a thing of the past as the expansion of infrastructure to receive additional water from the Lesotho Highlands Water Project is almost complete. Lesufi made the announcement yesterday during the State of the Province address at the Nasrec Expo Centre in Johannesburg. Let's unpack some of the salient points to come out of the SOPA with Andile Stofile, who is the change agent-in-chief at the Leadership with the Soul Institute. Andile joins us now via our video link, and it's great to have you on the program, sir. Welcome to the SABC News Channel. Of course, difficult moments call for tough leadership in some respects. The Premier starting his address yesterday by apologizing for mistakes that he's made. I wonder whether you reckon that's gone far enough in really bridging the trust deficit, which clearly exists between different arms of the state, including the provincial government, and ordinary citizens.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers. Thank you very much for having me. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. Being candid, being honest, and acknowledging the mistakes that have happened is definitely a step in the right direction. But however, that's only a quarter of the story. The rest of the 3 quarters is what are you doing about it, and what are the commitments that you're making, and making sure that there's accountability in the system. So this is really what the acknowledgements are great. It's good for the heart, but at the end of the day is that what's important is that what are you then going to do to rectify and accelerate the service delivery?
You speak about commitments. I mean, part of the cynicism that exists in the province is that the government hasn't really done a good job with, I suppose, fulfilling some promises that were made in previous State of the Province addresses. Was this addressed satisfactorily, at least from your vantage point?
Look, I think it went just like the president's state of the nation. I mean, it went quite a long way in terms of trying to restore a bit of confidence within the system. So I think the acknowledgements of the mistakes, I think definitely. I think what would have been able to take it even further is the acknowledgement of this is what we committed, this is what we have done, and this is the gap, and this is what we're doing to address the gap. Because what's going to happen is that every single year, we're not going to take stock in depth in terms of why we missed the targets and the commitments. And if we don't do that, then it's perpetually going to be rolling over. And therefore, the trust deficit deepens.
If there's going to be a report card, I think a lot of it will have to do with how the Premier has addressed the water crisis in this country. He again started off by really mentioning the different complications along the way, if you like, and had admitted that some residents are still without this valuable resource, I beg your pardon. The question, of course, is, if this was something that was avoidable, has enough accountability, for example, been taken on that score? So much of this is not, for example, from natural disasters or things that couldn't be predicted. In the main, we're told the infrastructure just didn't keep up with people's movements and demand.
Yeah, so I think, it's always good to look at this in this way, right? So if you look at I think it's section 27, it's a constitutional right that gives us access or that guarantees everyone's got a right to access water, food, etc., etc. And the state is obligated to take reasonable steps to make sure that they are able to realize these rights. So that's number one. Number two then becomes, the state of decay has been happening progressively, and in fact, it's been accelerating. Now, we can't, at the last minute, when the car's broken down, come now and say, oh no, but it's the infrastructure. The infrastructure issues has been accumulating over the years. And so my view is that, yes, it's good, again, it's good to acknowledge. However, the key is the timelines and what will it take, who needs to do what, by when, and what accountability measures are you putting in the system to make sure that when we are then having the next review, we are talking about, it's a 30-minute rather than a 2-hour speech where we're just delivering on the results. This is what we committed, these are the results. And where we didn't commit, this is the reason. However, this is what we are taking to make sure that we address that. And water is definitely, as I mentioned, it's not a favor for us to be able to keep the water. It's a constitutional right. And we need not forget that. This is why the state has to be held accountable towards realization of that constitutional rights.
Yeah, part of the criticism that I saw from the commentariat yesterday is also just how long the speech itself was. And I wonder if you reckon that length correlates to the level of detail that we needed to answer the how question. For example, part of the, I suppose, undertaking from the Premier is that they're going to really clamp down on the mushrooming of informal settlements. Again, nothing new, But, from where I'm sitting, I'm still struggling to connect the commitment to the practical implementation.
So what I personally, I think we don't need to have that level of speech, because if it's result orientated, we wouldn't have a 2-hour speech. That's my honest view, right? It could have been done in 45 minutes, where we're just focused. Clinically, we are focused on these were the commitments from last year, and these are the results, and these are the new commitments, and this is how we're going to tackle the new commitments. So I think that level of depth and time, it's, there's a lot of flowery language and a lot of, hoo-ha, hoo-ha, roo-ha, roo-ha. I think right now what we really are demanding as citizens is we want results. We don't talk anymore. We actually want results, and give us the confidence that results are going to happen, and we're not going to be, changing the goalposts in the next SOPA next year and not focus on why we didn't achieve the targets that we committed to this year.
Yeah. I wonder if you reckon there's a sound strategy to fight crime in the province, Andile. I mean, the Premier welcoming the deployment of the SANDF, which we heard from the State of the Nation address from President Cyril Ramaphosa earlier this month. But he's also spoken about the interventions in the past, those 20,000 CCTV cameras, the employment of young people to fight crime in the Panyaza, as they're called, the crime prevention wardens, even though the public protector subsequently declared that they have no local stand-eye, really, at least insofar as the legislature is concerned. But I suppose it's a very roundabout way of asking the question about, the crime-fighting strategy, given just how pervasive that question is, that issue is.
Yeah, so the crime issue, as the Premier pointed out, is something that is a threat to us achieving the economic ideals that we want. So we must take that seriously. Now, my view is that we don't have an integrated approach to fighting crime. Now, what I mean by that is, and I always make the joke that if I wanted to know where your cash in transit heists are going to happen, I would go to and infiltrate Inkabi and the Sangoma, because we know that before the guys go into a heist, there is a well-known Sangoma in the area that they go and perform rituals. So why are we not infiltrating those circles so that everything that we do is intelligence-driven? The reality is that we don't have an infinite amount of resources, and therefore we need to use the 80-20 principle. So let's focus our energies on the 20%, so the intelligence, making sure that those structures that have previously been collapsed for reasons that we now know, we rebuild those structures, and we make sure that crime intelligence is actually in the communities and gathering the right kind of intelligence, so that we are able to proactively deal with the crime issues. And also, if it's not integrated across clusters, then you will have the prosecution not necessarily speaking to the police, not necessarily speaking to, and therefore you have a disjoint, and then you will have criminals arrested tomorrow, they're out again.
Absolutely. Well, let's see how the next 12 months unfold. The Premier seems to believe he's got a watertight plan, but as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. Andile Stofile, great to have you on the program, sir. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Andile is with the Leadership with a Soul Institute.